If you have a plant at home, there's more than a 90% chance you have this exact one, and it might be dying really slowly, and you won't even notice until it's too late. And here's the worst part. This plant is famous for being basically impossible to kill. People buy it because they think it doesn't need any care at all. Stores sell it to people who don't have a green thumb. It's in doctors' offices, waiting rooms, small apartments, your mom's house, probably your house too. And that's exactly why it disappoints so many people. Because the problem isn't that it's hard to keep alive. The problem is that it's too easy, so until the moment it's already too late to fix. Stick around till the end and I'll show you exactly which plant this is, the mistake almost everyone makes with it, and how you can fix it today if this is your situation. I spent years hearing the same thing from people who lost this plant. I watered it right, I took care of it, and out of nowhere it went soft and died. And every time I asked which plant it was, the answer was almost always the same: the zeze plant. If you don't know the name, you've definitely seen it. Dark green leaves, really shiny, kind of thick, growing in this neat, almost too perfect pattern. It's so tough, it basically became the go-to plant for people who kill everything. And that's exactly where the problem starts. Let me explain what's actually happening inside the pot, because this is something almost nobody tells you. The zeze plant comes from dry regions in Africa. Over thousands of years, it developed one key trait, and that trait is the whole reason it's so famous. It stores water inside rhizomes, which are basically bulb-like structures underground. That's what lets it survive long stretches without rain, without water, without anything. And that's why it can go weeks, sometimes even a month, without water and still look perfect, still look shiny, still look exactly the same. But here's the thing, the same trait that lets it survive drought is the same one that makes it die easily from too much water. And that's where most people mess up without even realizing it. Because think about it. If a plant can go weeks without water and still look fine, what do you think most people do? They water it the same way they water every other plant in the house. Every week, sometimes more than once a week, because plants need water, right? And that's where the slow death starts. Unlike other plants that wilt, get soft leaves, and give you an obvious sign they need water, the ziz plant doesn't warn you about too much water the same way. It stays green, stays pretty, keeps looking perfectly healthy on the outside, while underneath, the rhizomes are rotting bit by bit. This is what plant experts call root rot, and the reason it's so dangerous is because it's silent. There's no strong smell at first, no leaves dropping right away. The plant looks fine on the surface while the base is already compromised. Now, let me walk you through the real warning signs you need to watch for, because they exist. They're just a lot more subtle than people expect. The first sign is yellowing on the older leaves, usually the ones closest to the base of the plant. A lot of people assume that's normal, that it's just the plant shedding a leaf, and sometimes it is. But when it happens to several leaves at once, and especially when the yellow comes with a slightly translucent, waterlogged look to the leaf, that's a sign of overwatering. The second sign, and this one's even more telling, is the stem going soft at the base. If you squeeze the stem near the soil and if it feels mushy, almost spongy, that's basically a guarantee there's rot happening underneath. The third sign, the most serious one, is the smell. If you pull the plant out of the pot and catch a moldy, rotten smell like sulfur or fermented soil, that means the process is already pretty far along and the rhizomes are probably compromised. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the real reason this overwatering happens isn't always about the amount of water. Sometimes it's the frequency that's off. You could be using very little water each time, but if you're doing it every single week without letting the soil dry out completely in between, the effect builds up the same way. The rhizomes stay soaked constantly, with no chance to breathe. And there's another factor almost nobody thinks about, and that's pot drainage. A lot of people buy their ziza plant already in the plastic nursery pot it came in, with no drainage hole at the bottom,
or they put it inside a decorative planter without ever removing the water that pools at the bottom after watering. That basically turns the pot into a permanent pool for the roots, even if you think you're watering correctly. So at this point, you already understand the problem, you understand why it's silent, and you know the signs. Now let's get to the part that actually matters: how to avoid this or how to fix it if it's already happening. First, about watering. The golden rule for a zizai plant is simple. Only water it when the soil is completely dry, not just on the surface, but deep down. You can stick your finger about 1.5 to 2 inches into the soil to check if there's still moisture down there. If you feel any moisture at all, wait a few more days. In practice, depending on your home's climate, that could mean watering every 2, 3, even 4 weeks. Yes, that's a lot less often than most people assume. Second, the pot. If your pot doesn't have a drainage hole, that's the first thing you need to fix. A pot without drainage is basically a slow death sentence for any plant that isn't aquatic.
And if you use a decorative planter, always check after the watering to see if water pooled at the bottom, and if it did, pour it out. Third, the soil mix. The soil you use matters way more than people think. A soil that's too dense, too heavy, holds onto water for way longer than it should.
The ideal mix for a ZZ plant is something lighter, with a good amount of coarse sand or perlite mixed into the soil to make sure the water drains fast and doesn't sit there. Now, if you already spotted the signs I mentioned, yellowing leaves, soft stem, that rotten smell, here's what you could do to try to save it. The first step is to carefully take the plant out of the pot and check the rhizomes.
Any parts that are soft, dark, and smell bad need to be cut off with clean scissors or a knife until you reach a part that's firm and pale on the inside. This might feel drastic, but it's necessary because if you leave the rotten part attached, it'll keep spreading to the rest of the plant. After that, let the remaining rhizomes dry outside the soil for at least a full day, sometimes even 2. This helps the cut seal and stops a new infection from starting before you even replant. After that drying period, replant it in a fresh pot or the same pot but thoroughly cleaned using new, light soil, the kind I described earlier. And here's the most important part: don't water it right away after replanting. Wait at least a week before the first watering to give the cuts time to fully heal inside the soil. If you do all of this correctly, there's a good chance the plant will recover, especially if you caught the problem early. Zizip plants are tough, but toughness has a limit, and past a certain point of rot, unfortunately, there's no coming back. Now, here's what I really want you to take away from all this, and it's not just about the ZZ plant specifically.
It's about a mindset that applies to pretty much any plant, with a reputation for being easy or unkillable. Every time a plant earns that reputation, it's usually because it can hide problems for way longer than other plants can. That doesn't mean it's immune to mistakes. It means it takes longer to show the consequences.
And that fools way more people than a plant that complains right away. So next time you have a plant that never gives you any trouble, don't treat that as a reason to stop paying attention to it. Treat it as a sign that you need to watch it even more closely, because by the time a problem shows up, it might already be pretty advanced. This applies to the ZZ plant, it applies to the snake plant, it applies to succulents, it applies to basically any plant with that unkillable reputation. The golden rule stays the same. Less is more when it comes to water, and paying attention consistently matters way more than sticking to a fixed watering schedule. If you made it this far, there's a good chance you have one of these plants at home right now, and maybe you're already feeling curious to go check if it's showing any of the signs I just talked about.
And if you go check and find a problem, you already know exactly what to do. If this video helped you understand how to take better care of your plants, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, where I'll show you more invisible mistakes almost everyone makes without even realizing it.